This is a video about spiritual communities and the governing forms of anarchism and communism. Hello, this is Wake Up with another video about building spiritual communities. Some of you are interested in finding and founding spiritual communities. The first video was about government, the four traditional forms of government: theocracy, monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. There are two more forms that are akin to democracy, which are anarchism and communism, which we will talk about in this video before we will turn to other topics like entry process, exit process, conflict resolution, funding, work, housing, and so on. So as you might have discovered already, most spiritual or so-called spiritual communities are in actual fact monarchies. There's one or two gurus and they say where it's going. This has a lot of advantages, but it has the big disadvantage that it does not attract turquoise and coral-centered people. Yellow, turquoise, and coral-centered people are attracted towards democratic communities, also anarchistic and communistic communities. And with communism, I don't mean the kind of communism that has been practiced so far in the world. If you look at so-called communistic countries, most of them are tyrannies or oligarchies. Tyrannies, for example, tyranny is the same thing as dictatorship. It's the negative form of a monarchy. Okay, there have been monarchies already. Probably Fidel Castro in Cuba you could call a monarchy, maybe. There are different voices about that. And most of the others, like Stalin and now in North Korea, they're more tyrannies. While in other countries, like East Germany, later Russia, and many other so-called communistic countries, they're more oligarchies. So there's no real communism. It's not that everyone has the same rights. There are some people who are more equal than others. And it always leads to corruption. This is no communism. This is not even socialism. Although if you talk to people who have grown up in countries that were supposed to be socialist or communist, they say there have been a lot of advantages in contrast to economic democracies that enslave themselves to industry. Yeah, in most so-called democracies, the governments are basically flunkies of big-time industries. And the only examples of communism that actually works are in India. There are two states of India, Bengal and Kerala, which are most of the time governed by the Communist Party. But it's still a democratic process, so it's a combination. It's still a democratic party with communist goals and alignments. Then kibbutzim, for example. Kibbutzim in Israel, they have a very strong communist touch, democratic communist. And then, sorry that I take this example again and again, but it is a very good example and I've been living there, so I'm talking from experience. In Orwell, it's a combination of democracy, anarchism, and communism. There's a difference between anarchy and anarchism. Anarchy is total chaos, like watch The Walking Dead, that's anarchy. Everyone is killing everyone else. Yeah? It's like Hobbes. Human beings are like wolves to other human beings. This state we do not need. But anarchism is something else. Anarchism is the lack of government. That's why I didn't put it into the government video. It's the lack of government. Everyone has the same say, really exactly the same. There are no representatives. There are no authorities. There's no executive and no judicative, meaning there's no police and no judges. Everyone can do basically what he or she wants to do, as long, and that's the important part, as long as it doesn't impinge on the freedom of others. That is the difference between anarchy and anarchism. Anarchy is the wild, wild west, where gunslingers kill each other. But anarchism is you can do whatever you like as long as it doesn't diminish the freedom of others, the right of others to do whatever they like. And for the longest time it has been claimed that anarchism is impossible. It's a utopian form of government, of social living. But it does work in Orwell in India, with aspects of communism and democracy worked into it. But basically it's a spiritual anarchism. It's the alignment, the goal of the community is spiritual, not materialistic. It's idealistic, it's a living utopia. But since it's a large community, it's not only 100 people, it's 3,000 people, they have to have some kind of political process, and this is more a democratic process with communist influences. So anarchism means there are no authorities. No one is more important than anyone else. Every voice counts exactly the same. But it needs people who can take responsibility for themselves and to have empathy. Well, communism actually means that all the assets belong to the community. You cannot have any private property. According to communist dogma, private property is where trouble starts. So there can be no private property. Everything belongs to the community. This, of course, takes the incentive away of doing good work, because you're not working for yourself. You only work for the community. Also, in extreme communistic forms of government, your work will be assigned to you. That doesn't fit with a spiritual community. That way, the anarchistic way is better. You choose whatever you want to do, because you feel drawn to it, attracted to it. The trouble, of course, with an anarchistic community is that there will always be people who do nothing. And that is also alright. But you need to have a certain number of people to be able to do that. You can't have 100 people and 50 of them do nothing all day long. But usually most people, they feel an urge to be creative somehow, and work is also very human. But the biggest problem probably in anarchistic and communistic communities is property, the assets. In an anarchistic community, as long as there's enough space, there's no problem. Only if you start to talk about borders. While in a communistic community, nothing belongs to you, even the house you're living in. So housing is a very important topic there. And if you invest in the community, there are different styles, which I will also talk about in the housing video. The first style is if you invest in a community asset, like a piece of land or a house or a flat, this investment, you will never get it back. As long as you live there, you can treat it as yours, although it's not yours. But if you decide to leave the community at some point, you will not get your investment back. It's a donation. The second possibility is that if you leave the community, you will get exactly that amount of money back that you invested in the first place. No matter what the value is or would be now, if you invested $10,000, you will get back your $10,000 when leaving. The third possibility, and that usually doesn't work, is if you get the current value back. that bankrupts the funds of the community usually, unless there's unlimited money. So, of course, you put time and effort into it, but that usually doesn't work. It's not a real estate investment. It's just that you can use this space, this property, this land, this house while you're there, and that's it. But communistic means everything belongs to everyone. There's this funny joke about people who live in communities like that, about people who just don't get the communist spirit. There are some people who cannot share. So there's this joke goes like that towards new members: what's yours is ours and what's mine is mine. This seems to be a very human attitude, and this is why communist states or communist communities cannot function with first-tier centered members, if you look at it from a spiral dynamics point of view. This is also why I'm saying that purple is a very, very important color, and that we never leave purple. We have purple roots, and purple is family, clan. You can share, you're willing to share with your family and your clan, but that's not with others. Well, a second tier perspective, turquoise and so on, you can share with everyone because you feel the connection to everyone. So for me, anarchism and communism are forms of democracy because it's the demos, it's the people who rule. It's not rulers, single rulers like in a monarchy or aristocracy. Only a typical democracy will turn into an economic democracy at some point. The economy will take over the politics, which is what communistic governments, communistic societies try to avoid in having no private property. And also all the economy and all the industries and so on, they all belong to the community or to the state. So there can be no multinational millionaire, billionaire taking over. And in an anarchistic society or community, there is basically no government unless a decision has to be taken. If it's absolutely necessary that people take a decision together, then they meet and decide upon it. The trouble is here that most people cannot deal with the power vacuum. They will fill it. If there's a power vacuum, most people feel very uncomfortable. So they will try to fill it actively or passively. An active filling of a power vacuum is to step in yourself, to take over power, to take more power than the others, and to exert influence over others. Passively is you look for someone who can fill the role and then support him or her as a follower. This is also why in Oroville it doesn't work 100%. Yeah? There are people living there who are centered in all kinds of different colors, from purple up to coral. So as soon as you have purple, red or blue centered people in your community, anarchism and communism will not work. They will turn into tyrannies or oligarchies. So if you want to find or found a community that is based on second-tier principles, on awake principles, on conscious principles, and not on ego games and money games and power games and fame games and so on, you need as many second-tier centered people as possible. And there will still be chaos, there will still be struggle to make decisions. The easiest way to make decisions is to have a monarchy or an aristocracy, but this will not attract the kind of people you want. Yeah, if you want to start a community and you want to be the boss of the community, the monarch, so to say, think, would you want to live in a community where someone else is the monarch? Probably not. So you will not, as the head of a monarchic community, attract other people like you. you will attract followers. And that has the advantages that followers do a lot of work. Devotees do a hell of a lot of work. They can create amazing things in a very short time. But they will do so to get your attention and your praise. They want the attention of a father or mother figure. If you want a community of attentive, empathic, intuitive, conscious people, then usually a monarchy does not work. An aristocracy maybe, but the usual way would be some form of democracy, with or without communistic or anarchistic elements. In my view, personal view, anarchism is the perfect sort of government, if you can call it government, because it is a lack of government, because it allows the maximum amount of freedom, the maximum amount of development, to the maximum amount of expression, the fastest integration of spell dynamics, colors and stages. But it will probably be the slowest form of physical growth. 100 workers can build a house faster than 2 awake individuals. So please tell me in the comments below what you think about the communistic and anarchistic elements of a community. Which kind of community would prefer to live? And when I say communism or anarchism, I do not mean the way these things, these words, these types of governance have been abused and misused and mistreated in the past. I mean the ideal form of it, which is possible but very rare. Communism basically means democracy without capitalism, and anarchism basically means democracy without a government, without a standing government. Governments will only be formed, decision-making groups will only be formed for certain purposes when the need arises, if the need arises. So please leave your comments below. Thank you for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you for sharing the videos, and see you very soon.